Such a beautiful island to be holding such a terrible secret.
Grown men don't usually cry, but I knew this is bad.
What really happened to Natalie Holloway?
I knew instantly that she'd either been kidnapped or murdered.
Sometimes it seems her parents are the only real detectives working the case, and they've learned a lot.
We knew beyond the shadow of a doubt at that point that the boys had totally fabricated this story about what they did with Natalie.
Tonight, we take you inside their desperate search.
Oh my God, it looks like a skull.
Also tonight, one of Natalie's classmates is speaking out for the first time.
I thought, well, Natalie, you're in trouble now.
Someone knows what happened to Natalie Holloway, but who?
I wanted to come through the TV and kill him.
Good evening and welcome to Dateline. I'm Chris Hansen in Aruba. She disappeared almost 3 years ago, and within hours, the search for Natalie Holloway had begun. And it continues to this day out in the sea behind me. Tonight, our search for answers as we bring you the story behind the latest headlines. This is the story you haven't heard about a cruel hoax, a possible conspiracy, and Natalie's last hours with friends told by an insider who has never spoken out until now. Will the world ever know what really happened to Natalie Holloway? She was a visitor in an island paradise, a young woman who wanted to be a doctor, whose life was filled with promise. Her disappearance has led to a different type of promise from her mother, her father, and a man haunted by his own loss. A promise to do everything in their power to find Natalie and bring her home. It's the Natalie Holloway story you haven't heard. The story of parents who even now will go anywhere and endure anything to find answers.
My goal has always been to find my daughter. That's been my ultimate goal from day one.
Not knowing that's the daily torture.
How could you imagine a family being put through anything worse?
The story began in early 2005 in Mountain Brook, Alabama, near Birmingham. The seniors at Mountain Brook High were planning the annual graduation trip to Aruba. But not everyone thought it was a great idea. Natalie's father, Dave.
I thought it was, in my opinion, too extravagant. I said, no, we're not going to do this. And I told her flat out she was not going to Aruba if I had anything to do with it.
But Natalie didn't give up, and eventually Dave Holloway relented. After all, if anyone deserved a reward, it was Natalie. In school, she'd been a straight-A student, a member of student government, even a counselor in a peer group called Natural Helpers. That fall, she was planning to attend the University of Alabama on full scholarship. Her mom, Beth Holloway Twitty, who had been divorced from Dave since 1993, knew it would be a great opportunity for her daughter.
Oh, I was excited. The Mountain Brook students had been there the previous 2 years, even my stepson, the year 2003. And there were going to be 150 plus classmates. So we felt like, there's safety in numbers.
She felt good about it, except for one troubling piece of information about a night spot down there, a bar called Carlos and Charlie's.
My stepson had an encounter at Carlos and Charlie's in 2003.
During his senior class trip?
Yes. There were some locals there, and they had coaxed some young females into leaving the establishment with him. And he stepped in at the last minute because he just didn't feel good about the situation. With them.
He saw trouble brewing.
Yeah, he did.
But class member Lorraine Watson, who's never spoken publicly about their trip or Natalie's last night until now, says it couldn't have started better.
We were so excited. I mean, we're going to tropical paradise without our parents.
Claire Fearman had been friends with Natalie since they met in junior high.
We are on the beach. We stayed outside all day. We'd usually take a nap, get dressed, go eat dinner, and then go to one of the bars. Come home whenever you wanted.
On the last night of the trip, Sunday, May 29th, Natalie and her friends headed down to the hotel casino. They soon struck up a conversation with a young man. He said he was 19 years old, a tourist visiting from Holland. His name, Uran.
I met him in the casino, and I didn't shake his hand or anything. I just said, "Who's that?" One of my friends introduced me.
What did you make of him?
he just looked like an average, normal high school guy. I mean, I remember he was really tall. I remember looking at him thinking, oh, who's that guy? You know, he's hanging out with my friends.
What was the buzz on him with the rest of the gang?
You know, I don't know if he initially came up to my girlfriends and said, hey, and started talking to them, or if they approached him. But Natalie was in there when I saw him near the blackjack table. And I don't know if they were even talking. I just remember seeing him and wondering what he was doing, hanging out with my friends.
Did he create any suspicions?
Not really. I just was curious to see who the boy was. I wasn't really suspicious. I knew he was going to come out with us later.
In fact, Uran did join Natalie and her friends later at that same well-known night spot that had worried Natalie's mom.
It was fun. I mean, when you go with a big group of your friends out to a bar, it's fun, and we were legal, you know. We were 18 and we could drink, so...
No fake IDs required.
Exactly. It was a lot of fun.
Uran seemed to fit in with the 100-plus kids from Mountain Brook, who essentially took over the bar Sunday night. Did you see him at Carlos and Charlie's that night?
I did see him. I didn't talk to him. I just saw him dancing.
Did you see him have any interaction with Natalie at all?
No.
What time did you wrap it up at the bar that night?
I think the bar closed at 1, so we pretty much left when the bar closed. So, you know, the last song came on, and Sweet Home Alabama came on. And I think that they all knew we were from Alabama, so they played it for us. And we went outside and started trying to get in taxi cabs, get back to our hotel. And it was kind of chaotic.
Do you think that's how Natalie got separated from the rest of the crowd?
I do. I do think it is. I didn't see her in the car that she was last seen in.
But some other members of the group did see who Natalie had gone off with. They didn't think anything of it at the time, but she had gone off with Uran and some of his friends. The next morning, Monday, the group was scheduled to catch flights taking them all back home. But at the Holiday Inn, no one had seen Natalie.
So I'm boarding my plane. One of our friends, Francis Ellen, comes running through the airport, grabs me as I'm getting on my plane and says, Natalie is not coming home. We can't find her. And I say, Beth is going to be so mad, because my initial reaction is, she is overslept. Where is she? You know, it wasn't panic.
But as Natalie's plane pulled away from the gate, panic did begin to set in. What was it like to be on that plane and have it take off from that island without Natalie on board?
It felt like I was leaving something behind. It was just a horrifying feeling, knowing that she was supposed to be there and she wasn't.
Back in the United States, Beth Holloway Twitty was in her car when she got a call on her cell phone telling her Natalie had not shown up in the hotel lobby to go to the airport.
I knew instantly when I received that call that, just from Natalie's history and character and just her record, I knew instantly that she'd either been kidnapped or murdered. There was no hesitation. Absolutely none. Absolutely none.
She raced towards home and frantically called 911.
I'm saying, my daughter's been kidnapped or murdered in Aruba. Help me. I need some help. And then the calls turned into, I'm calling 911. And I'm telling them I'm driving 120 miles an hour down the interstate and don't anybody stop me.
She finally did get pulled over, and a state trooper got her in touch with the FBI. Back at his home in Mississippi, Dave Holloway also got the frightening news. This was not a young woman who missed airplane flights.
Right. And it hit me, and grown men don't usually cry, but I knew this is bad. I knew then that I was going to have to go to Aruba to find her.
It was the beginning of a quest that would transform two parents from small-town America into international investigators who even today are trying to answer the question, what happened to Natalie? Natalie's mother and her friends tracked down Uran Vandersloot and asked him about the night Natalie disappeared.
The words that he uses are sexually explicit and graphically detailed.
When the search for Natalie Holloway continues.